Section 47 of Popular Tales from the Norse. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Sharon Riskadal. Popular Tales from the Norse by Sir George Webb Dasent. Section 47, Dapplegrim. Once on a time there was a rich couple who had 12 sons, but the youngest, when he was grown up, said he wouldn't stay any longer at home, but be off into the world to try his luck. His father and mother said he did very well at home, and had better stay where he was. But no, he couldn't rest, away he must and would go. So at last they gave him leave, and when he had walked a good bit, he came to a king's palace, where he asked for a place and got it. Now the daughter of the king of that land had been carried off into the hill by a Troll, and the king had no other children, so he and all his land were in great grief and sorrow, and the king gave his word that any one who could set her free should have the princess and half the kingdom. But there was no one who could do it, though many tried. So when the lad had been there a year or so, he longed to go home again and see his father and mother, and back he went. But when he got home, his father and mother were dead, and his brothers had shared all that the old people owned between them, and so there was nothing left for the lad. "Shan't I have anything at all, then, out of father's and mother's goods?" said the lad. "Who could tell you were still alive when you went gadding and wandering about so long?" said his brothers. "But all the same, there are 12 mares up on the hill, which we haven't yet shared among us. If you choose to take them for your share, you're quite welcome." Yes, the lad was quite content, so he thanked his brothers, and went at once up on the hill, where the 12 mares were out at grass. And when he got up there and found them, each of them had a foal at her side, and one of them had besides, along with her, a big dapple-gray foal, which was so sleek that the sun shone from its coat. "A fine fellow you are, my little foal", said the lad. "Yes", said the foal, "but if you'll only kill all the other foals, so that I may run and suck all the mares 1 year more, you'll see how big and sleek I will be then." Yes, the lad was ready to do that, so he killed all those 12 foals and went home again. So when he came back the next year to look after his foal and mares, the foal was so fat and sleek that the sun shone from its coat, and it had grown so big the lad had hard work to mount it. As for the mares, they had each of them another foal. "Well, it's quite plain I lost nothing by letting you suck all my 12 mares", said the lad to the yearling, "but now you're big enough to come along with me." "No", said the colt, "I must bide here a year longer, and now kill all the 12 foals, that I may suck all the mares this year too, and you'll see how big and sleek I'll be by summer." Yes, the lad did that, and the next year when he went up on the hill to look after his colt and the mares, each mare had her foal, but the dapple-coat was so tall the lad couldn't reach up to his crest when he wanted to feel how fat he was, and so sleek he was too, that his coat glistened in the sunshine. "Big and beautiful you were last year, my colt", said the lad, "but this year you're far grander. There's no such horse in the king's stable, but now you must come along with me." "No", said Dapple again, "I must stay here 1 year more. Kill the 12 foals as before, that I may suck the mares the whole year, and then just come and look at me when the summer comes." Yes, the lad did that. He killed the foals and went away home. But when he went up next year to look after Dapple and the mares, he was quite astonished. So tall and stout and sturdy he never thought a horse could be, for Dapple had to lie down on all fours before the lad could bestride him, and it was hard work to get up even then, although he lay flat, and his coat was so smooth and sleek, the sunbeams shone from it as from a looking-glass. This time Dapple was willing enough to follow the lad, so he jumped up on his back, and when he came riding home to his brothers, they all clapped their hands and crossed themselves, for such a horse they had never heard of nor seen before. "If you will only get me the best shoes you can for my horse, and the grandest saddle and bridle that are to be found", said the lad, "you may have my 12 mares that graze upon the hill yonder, and their 12 foals into the bargain, for you must know that this year too every mare had her foal." Yes, his brothers were ready to do that, and so the lad got such strong shoes under his horse that the stones flew high aloft as he rode away across the hills, and he had a golden saddle and a golden bridle which gleamed and glistened a long way off. "Now we're off to the king's palace", said Dapplegrim, that was his name, "but mind you ask the king for a good stable and good fodder for me." Yes, the lad said he would mind; he'd be sure not to forget, and when he rode off from his brother's house, you may be sure it wasn't long, with such a horse under him, before he got to the king's palace. When he came there, the king was standing on the steps, and stared at the man who came riding along. "Nay, nay", said he, "such a man and such a horse I never yet saw in all my life." But when the lad asked if he could get a place in the king's household, the king was so glad he was ready to jump and dance as he stood on the steps. Well, they said perhaps he might get a place there. "Aye", said the lad, "but I must have good stable room for my horse, and fodder that one can trust." Yes, he should have meadow hay and oats, as much as Dapple could cram, and all the other knights had to lead their horses out of the stable, that Dapplegrim might stand alone and have it all to himself. But it wasn't long before all the others in the king's household began to be jealous of the lad, and there was no end to the bad things they would have done to him if they had only dared. At last they thought of telling the king he had said he was man enough to set the king's daughter free, whom the Troll had long since carried away into the hill, if he only chose. The king called the lad before him, and said he had heard the lad said he was good to do so and so, so now he must go and do it. If he did it, he knew how the king had promised his daughter and half the kingdom, and that promise would be faithfully kept. If he didn't, he should be killed. The lad kept on saying he never said any such thing, but it was no good; the king wouldn't even listen to him, and so the end of it was he was forced to say he'd go and try. So he went into the stable, down in the mouth and heavy-hearted, and then Dapplegrim asked him at once why he was in such dumps. Then the lad told him all, and how he couldn't tell which way to turn. For as for setting the Princess free, that's downright stuff. "Oh, but it might be done, perhaps", said Dapplegrim. "I'll help you, though, but you must first have me well shod. You must go and ask for 10 pound of iron, and 12 pound of steel for the shoes, and 1 smith to hammer, and another to hold." Yes, the lad did that, and got for answer yes. He got both the iron, and he steel, and the smiths, and so Dapplegrim was shod both strong and well, and off went the lad from the courtyard in a cloud of dust. But when he came to the hill into which the Princess had been carried, the pinch was how to get up the steep wall of rock where the Troll's cave was, in which the Princess had been hid. For you must know the hill stood straight up and down, right on end, as upright as a house wall, and as smooth as a sheet of glass. The first time the lad went at it, he got a little way up, but then Dapple's forelegs slipped, and down they went again, with a sound like thunder on the hill. The second time he rode at it, he got some way further up, but then one foreleg slipped,